Well, hey guys, it's Darwin, and today I want to share with you what I think is the best, the king, the GOAT, if you will, of all the backpacking meals out on the market. Over the last 9 years of my backpacking and through hiking career, I've went through a ton of different trail meal phases. When I first got into backpacking with my wife, we ate a lot of the super common freeze-dried meals that you'll find at just about any store, like Mountain House and Backpacker's Pantry. When I first got into through hiking, I kind of swore those off for a cheaper alternative, eating a lot of Knorr rice sides, instant mashed potatoes, and ramen noodles. And then I went through my cold soaking stage, where I basically lived off an entire diet on trail of tuna and cold soaked couscous. And then over the last couple of years, I've kind of come full circle back to cooking again and eating a lot of the common freeze-dried meals that you'll find at a lot of your local outfitters and REIs. Mainly because it's just become a little bit easier for me to pick up a couple of meals on my way out of town for some of these smaller backpacking trips and section hikes. The cleanup is faster. I can usually get the amount of calories and protein and everything that I need out of one of these. And to be honest, I'm pretty damn burnt out on couscous and Knorr rice sides. And over the last 6 months, I've kind of been trying out a bunch of different meals, looking for that perfect meal, looking for a good balance of protein and fat and sodium. I want high protein, I want high fat, and not too much sodium, but just enough after a long day of hiking. And the most importantly is calories per ounce. I want as many calories as I can if I'm gonna have to lug around all this packaging and the extra weight that comes with one of these meals. But there is one meal out of all of the meals that I've tried, and out of all the meals that I like, that stands above the rest. Typically when I go out on a 3-day trip, 2 of those nights I'm eating the exact same meal, and one of those nights I'm usually supplementing one of these other ones to try it. And before we jump into it, this video is not sponsored by any of these meal companies. I didn't get any of these for free, I'm not affiliated with them, and I bought all of these super pricey backpacking meals with my own money. That being said, today's video is still sponsored, and it's sponsored by the company that has come on to help support my channel, allowing me to make all this new content, get out on trail and do all of this testing, and not get lost while I'm out there. Today's video is sponsored by Onyx Backcountry. Over the years, I've used a bunch of different hiking apps on my through hikes, but they've always been very limited to that actual trail that I was on. Well, now that I'm spending so much more time on lesser known trails, backpacking in more places like the Grand Canyon, and just creating my own routes, Onyx Backcountry has become this awesome, powerful tool to have in my kit to not only figure out and plan and route my trip, but also to be able to use all of those features offline when I'm on the trail. It has some really killer features like 3D mapping, the active wildfire layer, and probably my favorite, the weather tab. So I can look at all the conditions before I even get out there and then plan my gear setup accordingly. So if you've been thinking about stepping up your whole trip planning and navigation game, you can get a free trial of Onyx Backcountry by using the link down in my description box, and 20% off of a full subscription. I cannot thank Onyx enough for, number one, making such a killer hiking app, but also for supporting what I do here on the channel. Okay, so with any backpacking meal that I typically pick up, I'm always looking for the most amount of calories that I can get out of it. Mainly because if I'm gonna be spending the money and carrying around all this extra packaging, I want the biggest bang for my buck. I wanna make sure that I'm getting as many calories at the end of the day. I always follow, no matter what food it is, whether it's a backpacking meal or a snack bar or breakfast, I try to follow the 100-to-1 rule, making sure I get at least 100 calories per ounce. And all of these do a really good job of that. And like I said, these are kind of my favorites. Out of all the ones that I've tried, these are the ones that I think taste good, that I keep coming back to over and over again. And to start off, let's talk about the first one. Is the classic, the one that I've been eating for years, which is Backpacker's Pantry's Pad Thai. Now, I think back in the day when I used to eat this, it wasn't Pad Thai with chicken, I think it was just Pad Thai, but always a classic, always tasty, and you can get it just about anywhere. Next up is the good to go meals and the Pad Thai. I'm a big fan of Pad Thai and chicken pasta stuff when it comes to these meals. On the AT, The only rehydrated meal that I ate on the entire trail was my last night on trail before summiting Katahdin, and this was the meal. So it's a bit of a nostalgic one to me. Typically I use the bigger ones, but this is all I had laying around. Next up is a meal by a company called Alpine Air. This is the grilled chicken with spinach Alfredo pasta. I'm a big fan of this meal. This company actually sent me some meals back in 2017 before I started the PCT, and I never cooked any of them. I actually broke them up and turned them into cold soaking meals. I don't remember them being very good. Next up is the Peak Refuel chicken Alfredo pasta. My buddy Jonathan turned me on to these. Super good, super tasty. Like I said, I'm a big fan of chicken and pasta. I have the Trailtopia ginger chicken stir fry with rice. Big fan of ginger chicken stuff. Super tasty. You can usually find these at most of your REIs. I think that I've only ever seen these at REIs actually. I have kind of a smaller niche brand, but one that I've really fallen in love with, which is the Farm to Summit 3-bean chili and cornbread. Most of the meals that I try to pick up have at least chicken in them. I like meaty meals. This is a fully vegan meal, but super good, a ton of calories, and that little chili cornbread crumble that they put in there, super good. And then the only one that I don't have here with me because I just recently ate my last one out on a trip is a meal by a company called Pinnacle Foods, the creamy Tuscan chicken. Dan Becker actually turned me on to that meal. That's one of his favorites, and it is slowly becoming one of my favorites. So like I said, all of these meals are super tasty. For my taste, I think they're all great. They all do a pretty good job of packing calories in for the amount of weight that you're getting or that you're carrying. Decent amount of protein, decent amount of fat. The sodium's kind of all over the place. Some of these have a crazy amount of sodium in them. Some have a very low amount of sodium in them. And then as far as rehydrating it, that's kind of all over the place too. Some of them take just a very little amount of water. Some take a ton of water. And as far as how they rehydrate, I've had some of these that are perfect every single time that I make them, and some of these that are kind of crunchy and chewy, you know, like the noodles and the rice. That happens sometimes. But one of these stands out above all of the other ones. And like I said, if I'm going out on a 3-day trip, 2 of the nights I usually carry the exact same meal.
Oh yeah, yep, that's it, the spot.
The Peak Refuel Chicken Alfredo. This thing is a monster when it comes to those things that I look for in a perfect backpacking meal. Calories to weight, amount of protein, the amount of fat, the sodium, how fast it rehydrates, and the small amount of water this takes. So to start off, let's talk about the protein. The chicken Alfredo pasta has 53 grams of protein for the pouch, which is an insane amount of protein for one of these backpacking meals. I think the only meal that has more protein in it is the Pinnacle Tuscan chicken. But again, it's got a higher amount of protein, but this kind of equals out with everything else way better. It's an insane amount of protein, 53 grams. I like a lot of protein. I want to feel full at the end of the day. I want to give my muscles something to repair off of. Moving on to fat. The Peak Refuel has 48 grams of fat. Again, for me, I like getting a lot of fat in my meals because I want to make sure that I feel full at the end of the day, and having 48 grams of fat in there does that for me. I don't think there's a single meal out here that comes even close to 48 grams of fat. Moving on to sodium, 820 milligrams. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to something like the Trailtopia that has over like 2,000 milligrams of sodium, 820 is pretty good. I think the only thing that is lower than this is the Backpacker's Pantry, which comes in at 510 milligrams. I like a fair amount of sodium, but I don't want too much because I don't want to feel bloated. I don't want to retain a bunch of water and the next day on trail feel it sloshing around in me. So a fair amount of sodium in it, but where this beats out everything else that I've found out in stores, that I've tried, that I have here, is its calories per weight ratio. So the chicken Alfredo pasta only weighs 4.9 ounces, so under 5 ounces for this meal, and it packs 870 calories. There's not a single meal that I've been able to find that comes even close to that. It is nuts how many calories are in this for the amount of weight. And again, that is a big deal to me. If I'm gonna be buying it, I want a lot of calories and I don't wanna carry a ton of extra waste and weight whenever I get done eating it. So under 5 ounces, 870 calories is crazy. And then the last thing is actually preparing it. Not only does every time that I make this, it's not crunchy. You know, sometimes you get some of these meals and the noodle will kind of come out a little crunchy or chewy, or the rice will be a little crunchy, or the chicken won't be done. Every time I prepare this, it always comes out good. It always comes out creamy. But the biggest thing is the amount of water that it takes. So the Peak Chicken Alfredo only takes 8 ounces of water. And for me, that's a big deal. I do a lot of hiking in the desert and dry sections, and I don't want to have to carry a ton of extra water to make my meal at the end of the day. And I think the only meal that beats this out as far as the amount of water that it takes is its kind of closest competitor, and usually my second go-to when it comes to these meals, and it's another Peak meal, the chicken pesto pasta, which it doesn't have as much protein. It is a little bit heavier, but this thing only takes 5.3 ounces to rehydrate, which again is insane. I don't know how Peak gets the water so low in rehydrating these. And I gotta say, it's pretty on the money. It's pretty rare that I have to add more water than that. Obviously, elevation changes that, but usually at your base level, 8 ounces of water will get this thing done. So as you can see, there's not another meal on this table or meal that I've been able to find that even comes close to what I'm looking for in a meal. For my money, the Peak Refuel is the king. Do you guys know of another meal on the market that comes close to this? That the calories per ounce is pretty close to this, if not better. Something that has much higher protein, much higher fat, something that takes less water than this. What's your favorite meal? What's your go-to? What do you grab every single time you go to the Outfitter before hitting the trail? Leave me something down below and let me know your thoughts. Guys, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of each other. I love you, and as always, thanks for watching.